Trustees meeting for September 12th. We do the roll call. Carl's here. Dan? Here. Bob? Here. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so first item of business is the consideration of the minutes for the regular meeting of the Rockland Fire Protection District Board of Trustees for August 8th, 2006.
I've got extra copies here.
Okay.
This is the copy with the change, correct?
Correct. It's the one that we did Bob's changes.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are accepted as written. Okay, at this point we'll open the floor for public comment. And again, please. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped number 4.
Well, we did the procedures for public comment last time.
Last time, yeah. So is there anything, is there anything new or anything that anybody wanted to handle on that?
I'll make the comment, I mean, Carl. You know, at the last meeting, we talked about how would we conduct it if you wanted to have a more open exchange of ideas. Most of the rules you have, you want to keep. You know, you want people to talk one at a time. You want people to, you know, courteous and respectful. You know, the one you'd want to suspend for that meeting is just number 5, which is the one that says the board won't respond. You know, but you don't want to get rid of all of them, because last time we talked about suspending all of them. You don't want to do that because you want people to remain, you know, want to talk one at a time and remain courteous and professional and woof woof woof. So.
Okay. Well, in that case, we don't technically table this, but I think this is probably a carryover from.
That's just a carryover from next time. And in fact, on the next one, we won't need it again.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, number 5, public comment. Again, we'll open the floor for comments for 5 minutes at a time. Pat?
Hey, Issel. My comment is regarding the agenda. We tried over, I don't have a computer or really access to one because I don't have one. Even if I had access, I wouldn't know what to do with it. About the agenda. I'd like to know ahead of time before I come, you know, what's going to be discussed. I see tonight, and I was going to say, is there any reason you guys, like when we go to Shields Township, they always have the agenda sitting on the table for some of the people.
Right.
So this is the first time this has been, given out to us.
Last meeting, I had 4 copies that I mentioned
Okay,
were
and
right
did you
up here on
see how many? I didn't see them.
Nobody grabbed them.
Well, they weren't there when I got
I
there.
brought 4 copies tonight
Okay.
as well.
Right, and I made them every meeting.
I also have one that Brian gave me. Anyhow, on the agenda, can't you put something on your website? Or
You just
Yes.
said you couldn't get on a computer.
I have somebody that has one, and I'm really not talking to you.
Oh, excuse
Okay,
me.
because about a month ago you said you don't want to answer our questions. So I'm directing mine to the president and to the attorney. Now,
Yes, it is absolutely our intention to get the agenda both posted here. By law, it has to be 48 hours.
correct.
Unless there's a very last minute thing, we will certainly try to get it done as early as we can get the agenda finalized, and at the same time put it on the website. We had some technical problems apparently in communication, between us. I was emailing Bob, the secretary, to let him know, to remind him that he wasn't getting the emails. So I think that kind of fell through the cracks. We will make sure that does not happen
Okay,
again.
can I ask you though, is it on the Rockland Fire Protection District website, or is it on, will it be on the Knollwood Fire Department website? I think there's 2, right?
Well, there's really only one website. It's the Knollwood website. It does have a section within it on one of the tabs that has the Rockland Fire Protection District. It will be under that tab.
So she should go in on Knollwood.
Right, that's
If
correct.
you go on the Knollwood site, there's a page, a tab that you hit,
Correct,
that
okay.
says Rockland Fire District, and if you click on that tab, that's where it has the name of the trustees and all that, and I think that's what I'm hearing Carl say.
Well, she went on, I think she made a mistake today and went on the trustee, Rockland Fire, and she said all of a sudden, there's a thing telling her to fill out this form and mail it in, and I said, what? You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what she saw, but it was on
So
the
it's,
trustees.
right, it's knollwoodfire.com.
Okay,
And then, like I said, there's up at the top, there's different tabs, and there's for the trustees, and there's one that has the agendas and the minutes. And again, as soon as because we just finalized the minutes here, I'll have the minutes put out there tomorrow morning. I'll also put the agenda out, unfortunately, and we will make sure we get the agenda out as early in the week before the meeting as we can.
okay,
I think
all right, like
we
even
have a
over the
commitment from
weekend.
everybody to try to do that, so that's,
Okay, thank
that
you,
was the intention, but unfortunately, we had some snafus.
thanks.
Anything else?
Yeah, for me, Carl. Ed Whitehead. I see on here you are going to talk about, what would you say here, investigation of contracting or consolidation. I've never said anything, I'm going to say it here. I think Lake Forest is a bad fit because they have financial issues, and there are some serious financial issues. You never in a business do business with another person who has financial, fiscal issues within their own house. It's bad business. You will contract, they will not honor the contract, they will have to change the contract. It will end up costing you a fortune. So just due to their own fiscal issues, I believe that Lake Forest should come off any possibility of any discussions of operations with Rockland or Knollwood Fire Department. That's all I have to say.
Other comments, concerns?
I agree with him.
Ma'am, your name? That's my job.
Your name, you gotta say.
Joan Barrett.
How do you spell your last name, ma'am? I'm the note taker, so.
Oh, that's all right. B-A-R-O-T-T.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you. We'll move on to item number 6, the attorney's report.
We're starting to see laws being passed and signed by the governor. I think probably at the next meeting, I've got a stack of them here that I just haven't had time to do it. A nice little summary on the one I talked about how you get reimbursed for expenses. That bill passed. That takes effect January 1st. And I suspect what it's going to be is we're going to come out with a list of, here's some points you're going to want to make sure are in your policy. All districts have a policy already. But like one of the things requires is a standardized form. Okay. A second one says you have to establish what the reimbursement rate is. I think in the past we've used the state rate, which is fine. There is a provision that you could reimburse an expense in excess of that rate, but it requires essentially a 2/3 vote of the board to do that. And it applies to trustees, but it applies to employees too. So we may have to update our policy.
I'm just curious if we're really into that. I mean, obviously, we do very, very little with that. Mileage is obviously, we use the IRS, but does the state have like a per diem for?
It does.
Oh, okay.
There's a
We've
provision.
always, on the rare case we did, we just did it at cost.
Well, you can certainly do that, but there's a provision in the Illinois Administrative Code that the state uses for travel, and God bless them, it's only 2 pages long, and it said, here's like hotel rates, here's meal rates, here's hotel rates, and the mileage rate they use is essentially the IRS rate, whatever the prevailing IRS rate is. The only drawback to the state rate is that it was established in 2003, and so there's some concern on how permanent it might be. But if you go to the federal, to the GSA website, instead of having a two-page thing, you've got a website with about 8 different tabs, and you'll hurt your head. So that's something we can talk about when we get there. I mean, I just kind of suggested, just for ease of simplicity, you don't do a lot of traveling anyway.
No, and typically it's, said it's, you know, hotel room in Peoria for the conference.
Or it has like meals, you know, rates for meals if you're going for a part of the day or the whole day or whatever. So I'll probably have something for the next meeting for that. But like I said, I just didn't get to it because I just pulled them up on last Wednesday or Thursday. So that's it.
Great, thank you. Number 7, Chief's report. Chief John.
A couple of different things. Here's your call report for August.
Gracias.
I'm now focusing on just us and like Bluff as well as. Oh no, I have another one. I'm sorry.
You're more important than I am.
As well as mutual aid calls responding out of town, at the bottom, the cost of payroll for the calls, which obviously is paid out at the end of the year. Showing the busiest day of the week being Wednesdays, 26% of all calls, slowest day of the week being Tuesdays and Saturdays at 5%. Everything else is pretty much self-explanatory as far as the numbers go on that.
John, I'm sorry, are you going off of that topic? Is there, you guys have access to NIFRS, right?
Yeah.
You can put out the reports. Is there any reason why we can't do like just a NIFRS report on the topics and the calls?
If you guys, we were trying to break it down so it was easier and more understandable to read. But if you guys would like the NIFRS reports, that's something we can do as well. Or if you'd rather have that, the NIFRS report versus something like this, by all means, we can do that.
I don't know about the other board members. I would love to have the NIFRS report.
Absolutely.
On incident type. It breaks it down more for me and makes it a little understandable for me, I guess.
Just also understand, Bob, we haven't in the past dealt with anybody, and this is no disrespect to either one of you,
Done taken.
that has been in the fire service that would have a better understanding of those reports. Are there certain parameters of the reports that you want added as qualifiers for the report?
The incident type report, the summary one,
Okay.
is, I think for now would be more than sufficient.
Is that the one that we upload with some first quarterly?
Monthly.
Monthly?
There's no like private or protected health information. I mean,
No.
I wouldn't think so, but that's my job, is to keep it straight.
No, it just breaks down call type,
Yeah.
response.
It's a
location,
little more
building type.
detailed than
It
the other
completely, it
report.
completely is.
But it just gives me a little bit more information that I would like to have.
Absolutely. I want to start out with the engine went out to Wharfs for its routine service, which is its 8th service for the year. While out there and just going through the whole mechanical workings of it, they were also tasked to go over everything that fire service did as far as the wiring after the fire. Thank God they did, because there was uninsulated wire, brand new wire, on the frame rail, that we would have probably been in the same situation of either a large mechanical failure, electrical failure, or possibly a potential another fire. So Wharf replaced all of that. I mean, there was wire that wasn't even wire looms. So he replaced and took care of that, so it's now safe and done appropriately. And the bill for all of that, Tim just directly billed fire service for. And as far as we know, we haven't heard anything back that they're not going to cover it, so I'm assuming at that point that's going to be a done deal. The only other thing we're waiting on is a time to get the engine down to Marty, which is our radio guy down in Glenview. The cable that was also fried. The radio on the engine's a single base 2-head radio. So the one that's in the front of the cab works. The one that's in the engineer's compartment currently does not because that cable was melted. So it's just gonna be a matter of us getting a time. It needs to be fixed, but it's not high on the priority list as far as getting it down there. We have portables the engineers use. So once that gets down there, the engine will be completely repaired and done.
Is it that much cheaper than taking it just to 80?
It started.
I'm just thinking from convenience.
From what we were told is that it sounds like Havy's getting out of the fire service business or trying to stay away from the fire service business, especially on vehicles that he has not done himself from the beginning. So therefore, since Marty did the engine, that's why it went back to there as well.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of us getting it down there to get that one cable replaced as well. As far as other issues that came up with the engine during its service testing, there was 3 valves that on a vacuum test, they failed. So those valves were replaced. We haven't seen a bill for that, but it should be minimal on those 3 different valves. Everything else, oil change, everything else was completed. Another issue that we had that came up that actually FSI found but could not determine the reason was a check engine light that kept coming on. And in fact, on 2 different calls, I believe, I know one for sure, I believe it happened on a second one, the engine went into a protected mode where it will throttle down completely and only allow you to do about 15 miles an hour. And it feels like it's running sluggish. The brain box in there is set up to do that so that you basically don't blow up the motor. The check engine light that kept coming on was on the side of the transmission near the motor. What I ended up finding out was that the exhaust was bent at a certain point somehow, some way, and the exhaust was very close to that sensor. The engine thought, or the brain thought that the engine was overheating. It wasn't. It was just a sensor because of the proximity of that exhaust. We were able to order the part, and Lieutenant Grenaz was able to pull it out and just replace it, so that's back up and fine. And since then, since we replaced that, we've had no issues with that check engine light going on. That's done, that's done.
On the engine, John, at this point, we've been waiting, you know, we opened a claim on it, but we have a $2,000 deductible. At this point, from what we've determined is that we're not gonna come, our out-of-pocket's not even gonna come anywhere as close to that.
Our out-of-pocket at the end of the day with all of this should be 0.
And, you know, but possibly the wiring for the radio, I mean, but a couple $100 maybe?
Tom from FSI said, just send me the bill.
Okay.
And so far, he's been true to his word that they're gonna cover everything, and they have. So I would assume at this point, probably a couple $100 radio cable and maybe a couple $100 worth of labor. I don't see him backing out on that at this point.
Okay. But, so we can just, you know, at this point, we'll close that.
I would say that at this point, I feel comfortable, especially now that Tim has gone through it and made sure everything is up to par. I would feel comfortable, unless you guys have any other differing opinion, that we probably can go ahead and close that claim.
If you're fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't see him not covering a couple $100 cable and a couple $100 worth of labor.
And it would be under the deductible anyway, so.
Correct.
There wouldn't be any point.
Correct. So that, and the A service is approximately $2,500, which is something that we already had in the budget for the service of the engine. That's done, that's done, that's done. Brian, and this might be kind of a question to ask you, and I'm not sure exactly if we have to do it or not, but the state has come out and said that all medical providers have to register with Impact.
Correct. All EMTs.
Correct. And this is actually replacing the Illinois Medicaid
In order to be eligible.
information system.
In order to be eligible to recover monies and payments from Medicaid, every EMT has to register. And there's a simple procedure that either they can follow, or I even have some districts who just get their information and help them and do it.
I had to do it the other day at work, and it took me about 20 minutes to a half hour to do myself. My question, because this directly is towards billing and billing of Medicaid. We are providers, but we are not billing. would you recommend that I have all my guys register with this, even though we are not a billing entity?
Yes,
Okay,
because, you know, one, at some point in the future, you may be. Two, at some point, the services of your guys may be billed by a Libertyville or whomever they're with.
okay,
And I always prefer to err on the side of caution when it comes to reimbursements from the state, because I
Right.
really don't want somebody from Illinois Department of Public Health knocking on our door.
correct. Okay, then I will go ahead and have that set up to have all of our people register with that, and
And that's kind of the observation I've heard from my other chiefs in other places. It's a pain in the neck to do, and it takes 20 to 30 minutes, but, yeah, gotta do it.
okay. Then I will go ahead and have that done, as soon as possible, get that up and running. I guess this kind of falls into, 16, but I'll just cover this now. Probably about 4 weeks ago, during the time of my injury, and us being short with people, in the sense that everybody's got a lot, seems like everybody has a lot of stuff going on right now. And in order to facilitate and help the department, I brought on a gentleman by the name of Tom Flater. Tom is a 20-year veteran of the Newport Fire Department. He was their training officer. Tom is actually in charge of the Wildland team for Division 4. Tom just recently moved to Libertyville and owns a business in Libertyville as well, to where he is around the area all day, every day. Tom expressed interest in coming down here because of now how closely he lives to us. So it was probably about 4 weeks ago, we met, and I brought him on as a lieutenant. So Tom will be a new lieutenant down here. He's pretty much acclimated to everything that we have going on. Our department is very much similar to Newport in the way that we act, respond, and do things. So he is still getting kind of acclimated, but he's going to be a quick learner. So just wanted to bring you guys up to speed on that. Every single one of the officers was in favor of it. Also, he's one of the big reasons that we have the Wildland 4 engine here in our quarters, which is also available for us to use, and in fact, they were training with it last Wednesday night. So it also brings another resource as far as reserve engine capabilities for us.
When did he start?
I think it was about 4 weeks ago, when we first sat down and talked.
Okay. And the first name is Tom, what's his last name?
Flater,
F-L...
I believe D-D-E-R.
1D.
1D?
And the reason I
Sorry.
say that is, you bringing in somebody in a temporary capacity is one thing, but they need to take action to formally bring them on and all that. And that's why I wanted to write the name under item number 15, because you need to do a motion to bring them on in the role of a lieutenant.
And I believe, preliminary discussions with Chief Karani, as far as the ambulance contract goes. However, everything is pretty much on hold, until we figure out what the story is with Green Oaks and the sheriff. We really can't come up with numbers or have any real discussion until we get that hammered out. And that is all that I have. Oh, and as of Monday, they're releasing me back to full duty, so I'll be back down here, full duty as of Monday, next week.
Dan?
Okay, balance sheet showing our account balances, Lake Forest Bank and Trust, 31,110.81. Northern Trust Station Reserves, 36,355.15. Northern Trust Capital Investment, 162,022.15. Northern Trust Checking, 204,748.60. And petty cash, 29.05, bringing us to 434,265.76. Budget tracking to actual, I don't know how much you wanna continue to go through this line by line, Carl, is that?
That's up to you.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, I mean, as you look, you know, we're at, what, 38.5% of the, or around 30, about 33%, I guess. The items that we're over, without going over each one, you know, we're way under because we haven't spent them. The ones that we're, you know, that we're over on, some of them are prepays, like on the second page, you've got the insurance liability is at 97.9. For obvious reasons, you know, it's front loaded. I think we're fine on our budget items. I don't see anything that jumps out, so. You know, everything looks to be roughly where it should be, or under. There's a few things that are over, but we know why they're over, so. Unless anybody has any questions, I don't see to get too greatly detailed with it. So I would ask for a motion to approve the treasurer's report and the budget tracking update.
so moved. I will second that. We'll do a roll call on that.
Trustee Snowland,
Aye.
trustee Grum,
Aye.
trustee Rogers.
Aye. Checks to be approved, those I guess I'll walk through a little bit. Patriot Maintenance was the parking lot. Northern Trust, our monthly payment. Then you've got payroll. Work comp, which again, self-explanatory.
Actually, I'll just make a comment on that.
Go ahead.
This is our old workman's comp
From the
carrier. Even though we haven't been with them for a couple of years, they never did the final audit. And that came up, a couple of months ago, and so I gave them pulled the payroll information, gave them the audit, and this was the bill for that. The good news on that is I knew that would happen, and so when we did the budget, I put enough money in, and actually what it came out to be was a little bit less than what we had budgeted, so we're good on that.
Carl, is that our last payment to them?
To them, yes.
To them, yeah.
Yeah.
So we are
Yes.
free and clear of,
Yes, we're with the Illinois Public Risk Fund now. And it's the same thing where well, you sort of estimate what your payroll's going to be at the front. In fact, right now, we're doing the estimate for the next calendar year. Has to be done by September. And then they'll true it up afterwards.
We got a letter from Mailer. They had some billing errors or whatever, and gave us an invoice for snow that they had misplaced. I confirmed the dates and it was fine. So that's what Mailer Snow is. TDS, phone, Otterson Brits, North Shore Gas. The city, there's another separate breakdown on that I went and sat and reviewed with Eric and went over each item on the credit card. Comcast, ComEd. And I think that's pretty much it. The other was the breakdown of the card, which included things like batteries, postage, cleaning supplies, you know, a radio, some propane, nothing earth-shattering, everything. Again, we have invoices and receipts. I think everything but one item he was getting for. So that system seems to now be in place with Eric and I to walk through that stuff. So that seems to be good. So I would ask for a motion to approve $39,332.61 in checks, please.
So move.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Snowland,
Aye.
trustee Grum,
Aye.
trustee Rogers.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. Great, number 10, update on joint services with Lake Bluff. Rogers and Chief Harlow, go ahead.
Okay, John, I met this morning with Drew and David, Drew Irvin, the village manager, and David Graff, the chief, and basically just went through and said, we wanted to open the door to anything that would involve joining hands and continuing to work together, from glove purchases to ideas of where they see themselves in the next 5 years as to where we see ourselves in the next 5 years. I think they, and John jump in, I think they greatly appreciated us coming up and opening the door. And, you know, I just indicated that this board wants to open up communication with all of the surrounding fire departments to find out what they're doing, where they see themselves, and how we do or don't fit into their plans. Lake Bluff is especially important because of all the ongoing things. I thought it was a pretty productive meeting. I think they want to go back and talk, and I think we'll hear back from them. How did you feel about it?
I think it went really well. You know, they're looking at their strategic planning, and they're actually meeting at the end of the month to start their strategic planning for the next 5 and 10 year plans. You know, obviously some of the things that we brought up there and discussed and look at. And I think probably, I would say, within the next couple of months, we'll probably be meeting with them again, I would assume. Based on the way that it ended, I would assume that within the next couple of months, we'll be meeting with them again.
Drew indicated that he had taken a copy of our ambulance contract and went to Libertyville and said, "We want this." So they, I think they're wide open to looking at anything, and I think we just push the door a little farther open to, if they have a thought or an idea, that we're interested in having that discussion.
Absolutely.
So I thought it was well worth the time, and I agree. I think in the next couple or 3 months, we you know, follow back up and see where they're at on things.
Mm-hmm.
And just a side comment, but what you're talking about doing with Lake Bluff, or investigating the Lake Forest or Libertyville and all of that, I would include under the term of functional consolidation, which I know is the big buzzword in Mother Waukegan. I mean, you're doing it, and in fact, the fire service has done it for years. I mean, it goes back to the late '60s with Davis. So this is not rocket science. You guys are.
Well, some people are making it be rocket science.
Well, yeah. They're making it harder than it has to be. But that's only because the fire service has been so far ahead of that power curve. You know,
one of the things that David Graff said, he said he was he was very pleased with the way Knollwood and Lake Bluff are working together, and the way his department is running in general. And he said, that being said, he said, I wake up every day and wonder, when is the end? You know, how long are we going to be able to do that? And I said, well, that's kind of the premise of this, David, is how long can we do what we're doing, and are we ready to do what we may or may not need to do, and are you part of what we may do? So that's where I thought it was really productive, and they were on the similar thought process of, we can't continue to do this you know, forever as well. They're getting eaten up by their ambulance contract, and I got the impression they were eternally grateful for the way things are working out, not only from training, but from the response in the industrial park. And they know they have an issue there. They're well aware of it. And we discussed briefly with them that, you know, part of what we're working with is Hilltop. And John kind of laid that out, you know, real detail for them on where we're at and where we're going. And I thought there was good information exchange back and forth, and I think they've maybe opened their eyes up to some other thoughts and ideas down the road. And like I told him, I said, I want to be perfectly honest. I said, I want to talk to you. I said, although I don't think there's anything that can be really done, quote unquote, with North Chicago, they're still our neighbor. I still think that at some point we reach out and have just a simple discussion with them. Same with Libertyville and same with Lake Forest. They're the people that are directly around us, and for no other reason than to keep doors open and keep the air open and clear. And I thought it went really well. So thank you for pulling it together. And I thought it,
At our last meeting, we had a discussion about assisting us with the cost of staffing our station and responding to their calls over there. Did you have any discussion about that?
John and I decided that was the kind of the next meeting, because we were just trying to open the door up, and I think some time needs to be set aside for me to sit with you in your office, John, and understand it a little bit better. So we go in with some different options of how to do that. I think there's a dollar compensation. This is just in my mind, and you may completely change it by the time we're done. But there's also a staffing option as well to to provide staffing from their end as well from our end. If we're quote unquote covering for each other, and I'm using the wrong terminology, so bear with me. So I think that's something that in the next month or so, I'd like to sit down with you and see maybe a 3 or 4 month snapshot of what we provide versus what we provide for coverage for them. That would be reason to discuss.
I think one of the big things that will help with that is that study that they're paying for, as far as the SMA study.
Right.
That's going to give the information detailed out down to the minute, the second,
Right.
the personnel.
And they indicated they're doing that from going back 3 years, which is what they want. They said the first time they looked at like a current year.
Well, the
and
last
that
thing that was
wasn't
done was when they did the study with Lake Forest, Highland Park, and it was just a 1 year, and as Drew said today, you have 1 year of information. He goes, you don't even have a line's worth of information because you have to have 2 points to have a line.
Right.
You can't even have a trend because you only have, you have 2 years. So actually, I believe they're going back to 2010 with the data to go ahead and show trend of the last 5-6 years of data to see where we're at. One thing I would not want to do is go in with non-factual information with them. And I would rather, if this is something that they're producing, they're doing, they're paying for, they asked us to be a part of it at no cost. So why don't we go ahead and take that data that they're paying to have analyzed, that we can then come up and actually look at the same exact numbers. And they're saying hopefully another month it's done. So I think once we have that, then I think we have something to work with.
Right. And I don't think they're going to be opposed to it or confrontational at all, because David, without saying so, said so that that basically we're covering these calls. I think one of the things you may have picked up on it as well, that they were, I think, in their minds trying to figure out is the ambulance service, especially for everything this side of the tracks, which is a large portion of their calls.
Correct.
I think they would love to find a way to tag on to Libertyville for that. But I don't know, we'll have to see what they come up with. That's their bailiwick. I'm worried about ours.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you picked up on a common phrase that came back and forth between David and I throughout the meeting, which is assured response.
Right.
And that's what we kind of rely on each other for.
Right.
Is that assured response to where if we only have 2 people down here, they may be bringing 8 on an engine. And there may be days where we have 8 on an engine and they're only sending 2. But it's us working together to have that assured response in 2 volunteer type settings. So far, it's been working out rather well.
And this is a classic example of the fire service on functional consolidation. And it's a great thing to do. When you get to that point, understanding that's down the road, it just needs to be documented somewhere, because that's what attorneys are all about. So you got to, and you need to have a plan. And how do you know what the plan is unless it's written down somewhere?
Right. Well, and I mentioned that if we get to the point where we're making more decisions than having discussions, I said, although it would require the posting of a meeting, I said at that point, I think all 3 trustees and possibly you and certainly John need to be there if we're going to take things to the next step. But right now, again, with all of this, I think it's a matter of opening doors and gathering information, and we're waiting for a piece of information now. So I walked out feeling pretty good about where they're at, what they think of us, and what they want to do. Even as far as, it was kind of more of a funny story, but, or a comment from David Graff that I said, you know, even buying gloves together, and he kind of got a grin on his face, and he said, we had a glove committee to figure out what kind of gloves we wanted. And he said, the glove committee, there were 5 people on the glove committee, and they came up with 5 different gloves. He said, so we got rid of the glove committee.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I just think the biggest difference as I see it right now, and I again, I think starting these conversations is exactly where we need to be, but, you know, you talk about assured response. Well, we staff our station, and we pay people to be here, which means that we're gonna respond.
Correct.
They don't. They hope people show up, and again, that's not as assured a response as what we're providing for them.
Correct, but to where we also do provide the staffing, the backfill of people is where we currently lack. Because of the lack of membership from the community, as far as residents who live in the community, the only, other than, I believe, 2 people now, 2 firefighters. Everybody else who lives in town is a line officer here. That's it. So as far as what used to be that first engine going out the door with 5, 6 guys on it, is backfilled by the next 5 or 6 guys through the door, which is then backfilled by the next 5 or 6 guys in the door, which we used to be racing down here to get on the vehicles. That's just not happening anymore. The demographics of the community has changed to where we're not getting the volunteerism or the people wanting to come down like it used to be 10, 15 years ago.
Isn't that the same issue, though, that Lake Bluff is having? The demographics have changed?
Yes and no.
Because I know they used to rely very heavily on their public works people and all those, and
It's,
I don't think that's happening anymore.
you know, I'm not exactly sure of where the actual, you know, what their current membership, what jobs they hold full-time. But, you know, there are times where we will have 2 or 3 people responding from here to a call in town here, that they're then sending us 6 guys on their engine because it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, to where we might then get 1 or 2 more people to the door down here. We might. So I think that's where we also benefit from them more at nighttime, I would say, than during the day.
Right.
With that assured response, because we're getting the more manpower per se sometimes out of them than we're actually getting out of our own guys. We're getting the guys who are on duty, but sometimes that's about it.
Their real weakness then is during the day.
Possibly, you know, it fluctuates, you know, I mean,
But
it's
also,
no different, you could walk down here during the day and there could be 12 people sitting around here, and the next day you can come down and just 2, 3 guys on duty. It all depends on, you know, people's work schedules and everything they have else going on.
but it also seems that they're very cognizant of that, of those changes, and that's part of why they're doing the studies, is to really understand
Absolutely.
what the realities are today and what they need to do. That as David said, we can't keep doing what we've done for the last 20 years the same way. So they may be looking at augmenting staff or going to some paid on call or doing something, guys, and that's why if they're of mind to want to change and we can work with them, I think that could benefit all of us very well.
and I think that's really where it was left, of let us get our study done and let's get back together. I do have kind of I guess a similar question for you. So when you have a change of quarters during the day, when somebody calls for a change of quarters and you send an engine, what does that do? Is there a then call for others to come and fill back in here? Or the ones that we're paying to be on call, or I'm using the wrong term.
You're not using the wrong terms.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard, since you've been on e-dispatch or not, if you've heard a change of quarters.
I have.
You'll then usually hear within probably 2 to 3 minutes after that, you'll hear what's called a general alarm go out.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard that go out over, that's what we call our callback.
Okay.
So anybody who's available is to come down to the station.
Got it.
To where we'll send the duty crew out and get them going, but then we'll have a callback, a general alarm, to get people to come back and staff the station.
All right. Great.
So we're not left hanging wide open with nobody here.
I just thought, back to where, I just thought it was productive. I think they're very encouraged, and I just think they, it's good, and I think in a couple of months we'll have
It's been a fantastic working relationship so far that I think will continue to be in the future. I really do.
And I think we owe a lot of credit to Chief Harlow for setting the groundwork on this. I know you started working on this almost immediately when you came on board here. And I think this is starting to bear fruit now, because you go back again, there wasn't a lot of cooperation, other than on the really big bad stuff.
Sure, sure.
Well, and I openly and with Drew, thanked both the chiefs, that everybody is cognizant of the advancements that have been made, and David as well was, I think, real pleased with where things are at.
Good. Right, John? And Dan?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
All right, then we'll go on to number 11, update on investigation of contracting services or consolidation. Bob?
Okay, I was contacted a few weeks ago by Lake Forest, stating that they are reinitiating their talks with Highland Park, Lake Bluff, Lake Forest. They're reaching out to Libertyville as well if they're interested, and reached out to me and asked if I was interested in participating in the talks. I told them I would, and that should, the first meeting should occur in the next week or two.
Interesting thing about that, Lake Bluff knows nothing of this.
yeah, they knew nothing
Nothing.
of the study.
And they are not participating in anything.
Well, this initial meeting, I think, may not involve them, only insofar as I think it's laying some groundwork. But it will also be looking, the meeting will also involve some other issues that they're dealing with 2020 and the pension system. So this meeting may not initially touch on heavily on that
Gotcha.
issue, but they will participate in the future meetings.
Bob, for Lake Forest and Highland Park, could you sort of briefly overview who are the players in this? Who are, is this the village, the city managers,
Yeah,
fire
this-
department?
It would be city managers, whether or not they bring their fire department with them at this point, I would probably say, it's possible Highland Park will. Lake Forest, as you know, Jeff Powell retired, they've appointed an acting chief for at least the next 6 months. And I think the reason for that being that they're not sure where they're gonna be in 6 months, so it didn't make a lot of sense to actually officially appoint a new fire chief, so. This is, like I say, the initial meeting, it's gonna lay some groundwork down, and that's gonna be the interesting point, is to see how this is gonna move along.
Because I would ask that particularly, if chiefs are involved, that we also get John to be, participating in this. Is obviously, that, I think that works really well, is, that Dan and John reach out to talk to, like, Forrest. John and I will be talking to Green Oaks, so it's sort of,
Sure.
yeah, I know you do have the fire service background, but John is is our chief administrator, so I would feel really good if he was also attending the meetings with you.
Well, we'll see how this first meeting goes, and then take it from there.
Okay, great, thank you. That it? Okay, number 12, update on rescue services for Hilltop property. I reached out to Brian Musgrove, who is the trustee for Green Oaks, who's on the plan commission and head of the TIF district. So we wanted to sit down and talk to them a little bit, just to kind of begin the discussions, realizing that ultimately we probably need to go to senior lifestyles to get any compensation for the calls, but that it would be very wise to start with the village. The response that I got back to them was a little interesting. First, they said that they wanted to ask us to wait until after the joint review board meeting, which for the TIF, yes, it's the second Wednesday of October,
Yeah.
and I'm on that board, and John and I will go to that meeting. And apparently the reason for it was they thought we were asking for TIF money, which, as you know, there's not a lot of opportunity for that. But apparently they've come up with something very interesting themselves. And they're currently doing this with the Libertyville Fire Protection District for the other healthcare facility over on
Jamaican Gardens.
the Jamaican Gardens property. And that they are working on an agreement and an intergovernmental agreement, and they also wanted to get that done before they really sat down and talked to us, where they were going to actually give them money that is depreciation on the ambulance. So they're giving them, they feel that they can give them TIF money that, based on that, they're gonna work out some kind of per call rate or whatever like that. I didn't think there would be much chance of getting any TIF money, but if the Libertyville Fire Protection District could do that, they should do exactly the same thing for us, which in a sense would then help offset, whatever Libertyville Fire Department charges us. If they, if we can get $100 out of TIF money per call, then obviously that would, would go over to help pay the bill. But that's still, we do need to really talk to them about partnering with us to reach out to Senior Lifestyle to do that. So we will hopefully later in October sit down with them and have those discussions. They were more than willing to, but they just wanted to get the Joint Review Board meeting out of the way and the intergovernmental agreement with Libertyville Fire Protection District out of the way.
So that'll be probably, you'll know a little bit, you think you'll have 1 or 2 meetings by next month? Because you got you got your TIF meeting, right?
Yeah, that's just
And then after,
that's a once-a-year meeting. That's pretty much just a formality.
and once that's done, then the way I understand it, then you're gonna meet with Senior Lifestyle?
Well, it depends. We may be able to accomplish it. All the people that we need to talk to will be there.
Oh, okay.
It's not an Open Meetings Act kind of problem for us, so we can talk to Brian. Their attorney will be there. I've talked to him a number of times. A couple other folks will be there. So again, we can just say, hey, are you willing to help us do that? So maybe we can accomplish it then.
I tell you, having sat in on a TIF hearing or two, which is a wonderful experience, that the only thing better than that is going to a dentist without Novocaine. I tell you, it's a public hearing. It's not an open meeting. It's a public hearing, which makes it the likelihood of you being able to have private conversations is probably pretty remote.
Actually, I think this may be a little different. That phase is over. Yeah, we did. This is just the annual Joint Review Board meeting, and they basically
Status update.
It's a status update. It's not really a public hearing. It is. The public's invited, but it's not a hearing. It's just a status update for all of the taxing districts that are getting all their money taken away from them.
So number one, I suspect it's going to be subject to open meetings.
Oh no, I think I'm not saying this very well, but I apologize. Yes, the meeting itself is. But before the meeting, you're standing there and you pigeonhole people you need to talk to. There are lots of side conversations, and those don't need to be open meetings because it's just the two of us,
right.
And one of them, It's,
as long as you got there, okay.
If that's what we're talking about.
The second thing,
the players will be there.
The village does have some latitude in how it spends its TIF funds. You have to be careful. It has to be sent for purposes in support of the TIF, which clearly they brought in this big, huge, multi-bed facility, and that's part of it. That said, just the practicality of how TIFs are done, villages implement TIFs and do all these improvements in hopes of bringing development, and typically they husk the money, so up front they have to pay for that. Well, for the first 10 years of the TIF, they're paying that back. So there's probably limited amounts that are available. Just so when you go in there, understanding that they have some, but they may not have as much
And
as.
Brian, also know that this development is what's paying for all of the redevelopment and TIF throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, so that's money to be spread pretty thin.
Oh, yeah,
But it's a fair question to ask.
Yeah, we really didn't expect to get much to any TIF money at all, because it says typically can only be given for capital acquisitions. And they would buy us an ambulance maybe. We don't, they build us a fire station, but no, I just say it's that kind of thing. They can't. My understanding is they can't use it for anything operational. So that's why this depreciation is a kind of a interesting way around that.
Having worked for the issue, you can be very creative in how you justify the expenditure of TIF money, because it is for a public purpose. I mean, you can have this facility, you need ambulance service. How you get there just depends. You get a couple good lawyers in the room, and we'll come up with the wording
For a price.
Money.
Well, they just take the piece off the top.
Oh, is that what it is?
Oh, yeah. TIF attorneys get paid right off the top, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth asking, sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I think that's where we are with that.
I would say hopefully by the November meeting, I would say it would be realistic as far as us being able to
Have
met
something,
with-
yeah, having met with them and see what the prospects are.
And they've been working with us very well so far, so I would hope that that would not change as we move forward with it.
Yeah. As you say, from what we've seen, Senior Lifestyle is one of the better companies in doing this, and they're large. They have many facilities. They are not low-end facilities, and I think they understand the cost of doing business. That's our hope. Is
$4,700 a month to $9,000 a month over there.
Not a cheap stay, it's not a Motel 6.
no. It's not Claridge. It's a completely different thing. So I think that we have every reason to believe that they understand this is what is necessary, because otherwise it's going to get really ugly really fast. And I don't think anybody wants that.
No, and I don't think they do either.
No. All right. Number 13, discussion and action on station grounds maintenance. Trustee Rogers.
All right, I guess my question is, what do you two want to do with the grounds? You know, my thought was to start and try to eliminate beds to make as much grass as we can, because that's the easiest thing for everybody to maintain by mowing it. There's gargantuan weeds and such out there. And Eric had made a comment at one point that he was going to talk to the association and see if they wanted to throw some money in. Part of what my suggestion was that I sent out to all of you was just that, to reduce some of the beds, get them seated in around the side, and make things simpler to maintain. But there's a cost to that. So.
What's the approximate cost to do something like that?
It's about $1,000 to get it all whipped into shape, seed, matted, around the sign, grind out those stumps that are out there, prune things back. And my idea would be, certainly on the ornamentals, the crab trees and stuff, is to prune them a little harder than normal, so maybe we don't have to fool with them next year. But get rid of some of these beds so the guys can just mow.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not entered in a beautification contest. We want it to look nice and clean.
Absolutely.
And so, to the two of you, what do you want to do? I mean, we don't have $1,000 budgeted in as a line item of grounds maintenance. And maybe it's just because that's what I do that it hits me. Maybe the two of you say, you know what, don't worry about it, Dan, weeds are nice.
No, I mean, I nuked them at one point too.
So again, I just think we need to do something to clean it up and make it simpler.
I don't disagree. As my concern is just that it's money. We have to count every dollar very very carefully. So what I really say is finding the right balance. Right, the guys do a lot of work around here to maintain the facilities. We appreciate that, but I think that is part of the deal. So what's the right level? And you don't want to expect too much, but at the same time have the, and I guess this is what we're trying to get is get a landscape plan that isn't ridiculous and requires way more maintenance than than is expected for the firefighters to be able to do. And if I'm willing to spend some money to get us to that point, but I don't want to keep spending money every year to do maintenance on plantings that we
Well, that's the idea. There's some of those plantings out there truly can just go, and we can grade around that drain and let the grass grow around it and be done with it. I guess what I'm saying is if you got it, let's say cleaned up this year, I would see the cost outlay required by this board significantly reduced and able to be minimized for the years to come.
Okay, well, I guess what I would ask would be that, you know, if you can, talk to the chiefs and sort of kind of say, well, if we do these things, here's what you're gonna be left with that you need to maintain. Is that okay? I mean, does that work for you? Does it, is that a reasonable amount that you can commit to having the guys take care of it? And is, and then I'm more than willing to support whatever we need to do to get there.
Can I throw out a suggestion? We have Pancake Day coming up in October. I would like the building or the grounds cleaned up prior to that. The association is willing to cover half, and I could probably even ask them for more than half of the money for a fall cleanup. And just clean out all the dead right now. Whatever you think needs to go.
I'm happy to meet with you. In fact, I can come over and tag things.
I mean, what are you thinking, $500 for a fall cleanup to get? And I'm not saying pull all the beds out at this point.
Well,
I'm just saying,
if we can rip the stuff out and get it out, that significantly reduces what it takes to really, John, grade it and seed it. I mean,
okay.
that's not a big deal. But I just, in no way, shape, or form, feel comfortable coming down here and instructing anybody what to do.
No, I'm saying that the
talking to you.
association would be willing to pay
Okay.
for a portion of it for sure. And then if we get to the point where we have things cleaned up and ripped out now, in the
It'll look great in
spring,
October, yeah.
in the spring, go ahead with whatever plan you suggest
Right.
as far as whether it be covering the beds, plantings, or whatever else.
Well,
And that
I-
way we can also look at the budget at that point, see where we are with monies, and we'd be coming into a new budget year actually as
Yeah.
well, that we could,
Well, it seems logical, your concept of eliminating the beds,
right,
which, then if it's grass, it's simple to maintain.
right.
So the money you spend to clean it up and seed it, rather than replace it with more beds,
Right,
is only gonna save us money in the future.
right.
Well, if the association can come up with 500, do I speak out of turn and say we can conjure up 400 or 500?
Oh, yeah, yes, you do, but that's okay.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I would say that, I would say
I
that,
would think that.
obviously I'm nothing
problem
more
with
than an
that.
association member,
right.
but I would say that,
So you give me a thumbs up on that, and as soon as you give me a thumbs up, then I'll get the ball rolling.
sure, I'll talk with the president and run it by him and,
Right, and once we're done, when I get these guys in here to do it, all you'll have to do is water.
okay. And is that something, I'm not a landscaper.
Yeah.
At this point of the year,
Yeah, it's
will
a
grass
perfect
grow?
time. Yeah,
Okay,
you'll have grass up in 10 days.
okay,
And I'll talk to you further, before we get too close to Pancake, or you guys get too close, let's sit down and talk with Kenny and maybe brainstorm.
that's your man over there.
Okay,
Tito.
let's brainstorm a little bit on that and see through Kenny what we might be able to get donated if we can get ourselves ahead of the curve. Versus being last minute. I can even call Lynn up at Celebrations and see if she'll, help us out a little bit more than her average cost, because Ken does a lot with her. See, I think last year we did pretty good on you did pretty good on tables and chairs, if I remember correct.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, price-wise.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, all right.
So what I'm hearing then is we have consensus to proceed with the grounds cleanup at a cost not to exceed $1,000, 500, not more than 500 of which comes from the district, and 500 of which comes from the association, right?
So
Sounds
moved.
good. Well,
Works.
consensus, yeah.
Yeah, it's consensus, because at some point, you're gonna get a bill, and you gotta pay the bill, and you're gonna approve the bill, but we wanna get the direction to the chief to proceed to work with the association and whomever to get it done.
Okay, very good.
Perfect. That's my job, is to clean up the mess.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's it for number 13.
Yep.
Non-agenda items, this is the one thing that I had hoped to get the sample rules of the Board of Trustees put on the agenda, but we did not. So
They're here, for the next meeting, we should have them.
okay, so please, take some time to read through them. I think Brian did a great job on it. Most of it is pretty much what we do. Just in case you don't know on certain things, it talks about the investment policy, the purchase policy. We have those. I mean, pretty much everything here is kind of what we do anyway, so I think it would be good to formalize it. Because, unfortunately, we are a little light on policies, and let's
I'll tell you the next step of this, and you'll see all these little rules are numbered to something, to one. That's because in our standard district board policies, there's 4 or 5 sections depending on how you cut that pie. But the first section I think you need to get done too are all the rules that you gotta have. How do you comply with FOIA? What are the forms for FOIA? How do you comply with Open Meetings Act? Who gets what? You know, you're all mandated reporters, how do we do this? You know, what happens if somebody, you know, contacts you about, you know, a public statement for the press? Well, you know, these Rule 1 are all the, you know, anti-harassment, non-violence policies, the things you need to have legally. But I thought, let's start with number 2, because that's how you guys work first, and then we'll add, I can piecemeal number 1 in there too. And then after that, you can figure out how you want to proceed.
The only other non-agenda item that I had is in working on the windows upstairs, I opened up the closet up there. Maybe, and this is more of a question / request, in the next few months when everybody has time, maybe you can go through that closet and decide what's good, what's junk. I know that Eric had said something at one point about some of those pagers and stuff weren't useful anymore or whatever. And I don't know, are they saleable on eBay? I guess I'm just saying, if you could go through it and if it's stuff we're going to get rid of, maybe we could lay it out and the board could look it over and we can go through the proper procedure of.
Majority of the stuff in there is pancake-based supplies.
Right.
But as far as some of the old radios and pagers that we have that are in there, my understanding, in order for us to, I mean, I'll have some of these guys put them on eBay, and they'll probably sell pretty quick. However, we need the surplus and
Right, we have to,
Yes.
we have to
serial number,
designate
and
surplus.
you guys have to go ahead and declare it surplus.
Yep.
If you give me a list of the junk you want to get rid of, and it needs to be reasonably detailed, you know.
Minute or 4 pager, serial number.
Right. And give me a laundry list, email it to me, I'll prepare
Excel.
the resolution for them to declare it surplus. And what, it's a very generic resolution that says, everything in Exhibit A is surplus, no longer needed. The chief will dispose of that and from time to time report to the board on how he's doing it. Some things aren't gonna be economically worth proceeding, in which case you just get rid of them and it's, you know, it's on. Other things that you can sell, at least you can come back and say, hey, we had these 5 radios, we sold them on eBay and we got $200, whatever it is. But it's a standard thing, I can prepare that, but I just need a list of
Do you
what
want it in Excel or do you want it in a Word document? What's easier for you to copy and paste?
either, because I can manipulate the tar out of both of them.
So anyhow, I guess just have the, I guess I'd say it's maybe at a point of maybe take it out, reorganize, put back what you want to keep, what you think is good, and have everybody look through it and what's not. I think there was a, if it's still in there was a part of a lounge chair or a chair in there at one point. Just kind of.
Yeah,
When we get all the pancake stuff out, I'll go through everything and reorganize everything and clean it up. And then I'll put like a shelf to the side where we have to surplus or whatnot.
That'd be
and
excellent.
Leave it there.
Great. Because it's a little hard to get to the phone system.
Yeah.
And stuff on the radios and stuff right now.
Okay.
So it'd be nice to get just a little bit more space back in there. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. All right, you're back up.
Like I said, it's
Just
just,
get official.
yes. At this point, like I said, I brought Tom Flater on as lieutenant. Tom has been a 20-year veteran of the Newport Fire Department, a lieutenant up there as well, their training officer. He oversees a Mavis Division team and wants to come down here and I think can be a true asset to this department. He's about 40 years old, like I said, lives in Libertyville and runs his own business out of Libertyville as well. So I'm asking for the board's approval on this to go ahead and bring Tom on.
What would you like on this one?
You just motion to appoint Tom Flater as a lieutenant with the Rockland Fire Protection District, effective, what, the date is the problem that I have here. When did you start paying them?
We
Haven't.
Oh, well, then,
This is-
then you can make it effective
Yeah,
today.
you can make it effective, you can make it effective today.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't been getting paid, this has just been a kind of an orientation.
That's pretty typical, but right, when you bring new people in, it's a while
Correct.
before you
It's-
actually get.
It's a
them
little
going.
different to bring somebody in as a line officer,
Mhm.
and then, as a blue shirt. But Tom's qualifications are extraordinary, and he's willing and wanting to help.
So there you go, motion to appoint him as lieutenant effective today.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. John, could you do us a favor? That's me.
I was gonna say,
Could you, do a little org chart? You know, chief,
Hierarchy?
deputy chief, lieutenants, you know. I threw one together, a number of months ago, and sent you just what I kind of thought it was. If that's of any use, you know,
I will-
to get started.
I will go ahead and I will put one together for you.
Yeah, that would be.
And I can actually list out all the members of the department as well,
Yeah,
below
just
the
great.
hierarchy, if that works
That
for
would
you
be
guys.
perfect, that would just be nice to have, yeah.
With photos, please, so I
We can do that too. No, I mean, we can.
You actually could, yes.
Speaking of photos, have you got an ID yet? Okay.
you can use the picture from the post office.
When Kaz gets back in the town, I'll have him get a picture of you and have you get the ID made for you. And you guys still have yours, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, I guess if there's no more business for the board, I would ask for a motion to adjourn at 7:43.
Make a motion to adjourn?
A second?
Second.
All in favor,